Wikileaks notes the Panama Papers may be a tool to widen sanctions in Moscow amid growing criticism about U.S. funding of the revelations. Taxpayer fury in the UK after David Cameron decides to spend millions of their money on leaflets urging people to stay in the EU. And after the Dutch reject closer EU ties to Ukraine, President Poroshenko calls the nationwide referendum, quote, a threat to European values. This is RT International coming to you live from Moscow. I'm Marina Joshi. Welcome to the program. Now, the U.S. might be using the so-called Panama Papers as a tool to widen sanctions on Moscow. According to Bloomberg, the White House is reportedly checking the leaked information to find who might have helped companies or individuals dodge sanctions on Russia, which the U.S. imposed over the Ukraine crisis. The news comes as whistleblower side Wikileaks raises serious question marks over the papers, and it says that Washington played a major role in the revelations with the intention of targeting Russia. Timurlo Matadani examines the accusations.
Mossack Fonseca is a Panama-based offshore law firm. More than a year ago, an anonymous source passed 2.6 terabytes of the firm's data through a German newspaper to the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists. But what is the ICIJ? A DC-based organization sponsored by, among others, the Open Society Foundation. And remember that name. Well, to sort through the Panama Papers, the ICIJ in turn distributed the files among affiliated journalists and organizations. And this one received the documents relating to Eastern Europe.
We were contacted by the ICIJ. We've been collaborating with them for a long time with a request to prepare part of the investigation on Eastern Europe and Eurasia, and we agreed.
The Organized Crimes and Corruption Report Project. Now, what is the OCCRP? Here's one of their flagship materials. They named Vladimir Putin Anti-Person of the Year way back in 2014. And that's exactly the organization that Wikileaks is concerned about over its role in the investigation. But why? Well, let's backtrack a bit. The OCCRP is funded directly by the U.S. government via an organization called USAID, as well as by the Open Society Foundation, run by billionaire George Soros. Remember, that's the same group that partly funds the ICIJ. Now, what are USAID and the Open Society famous for?
Anytime you see anything funded by Washington, directly or indirectly, you know that you are permitting Washington to undermine your own country.
His influence is beyond global. The Panama Papers might be a pushback from Soros for Russia last year, banning a number of American non-governmental organizations.
And so it seems that pretty much none of the recent revolutions went ahead without some sort of involvement from American NGOs. While the OCCRP does not even hide its anti-Russian stance. And this is why Wikileaks thinks that its involvement in the attack on Putin undermines the investigation's credibility. Dumelo Mototwane, RT.
Now, in the wake of the papers' revelations, the U.S. has announced it's boosting the number of employees to tackle corruption inside the country. The documents mention dozens of people with U.S. addresses, although the numbers are dwarfed by those outside the states, and that may be for good reason. According to the latest Financial Secrecy Index, which highlights countries that provide safe havens for tax evaders, the U.S. ranks a lofty third, in fact, far surpassing Panama itself, which ranks 10 places lower. It's possible to set up a legal entity in the U.S. even without naming the beneficiary. Journalist Ernst Wolf believes the country has turned into a true tax haven.
The United States have been professing to be fighting tax evasion all over the world, but at the same time they've opened up some tax havens in their own country. See, the states of Delaware, Nevada, Wyoming and South Dakota are the new Switzerlands of this world. And what they're doing right now is they're blackmailing people all over the world because nobody knows if he will end up in that list. And people, the only way that people can avoid ending up in that list is putting their money into the new tax havens in America.